Hi, my name is Paul Kautza. I'm the Director of Education for the Data Warehousing Institute, and we're here at our Chicago conference with Fern Halper, who is the Director of Research for TDWI, and Krishnan, who's President and CEO of Sixth Sense Advisors. That's right. And thank you both of us for joining us today. We're here to talk about the TDWI Big Data Analytics Maturity Model that we've been kind of in partnership working with you on. Fern has been taking the lead from the TDWI perspective, and Krish, you've been working very closely with Fern on putting this together. Could you guys tell us a little bit about the genesis of the Big Data Maturity Analytics Maturity Model, and where we are on it and what's happening with it?
That's a mouthful, right?
Yes.
The Big Data Analytics Maturity Model. Well, the reason that we started to put this together was that a lot of companies are thinking about big data. They don't know, what first steps to take. They want to sort of understand where they've been, where they're going, and what they need to get there, basically. So we put together a model, which essentially goes from sort of an early stage to a visionary sort of stage, looking at capabilities that an organization has. And what users would do is that they'd actually go onto the TDWI site and they take an assessment. So it's really a benchmarking assessment. It's not just a model, it's actually an interactive assessment. And they would go in and they'd answer a series of questions across 5 dimensions, which are around analytics, infrastructure, data, technology, and governance and data. Yeah, five dimensions. And they'd answer a series of questions and they'd get back essentially, their score compared to their peers' scores. Mm-hmm. So they could see where they stand. And, in addition to that, they'd get information about what would be some of the next best steps that they should take. And along with that, we'll also create a guide, a benchmarking guide, so that they can understand what the maturity model looks like, how organizations move through sort of their big data journey, what does it take to really be a visionary. And I'll also explain their scores relative, what their scores actually mean. So that's what we're doing. That's what it's about.
Terrific. Well, I think that the timing of this is really pertinent because we got so many people. I mean, the theme of the conference here is the big data tipping point, right? And so many organizations are trying to figure out what they should be doing with the big data and big data analytics and how they do it and where they get to. And I think a lot of them are wondering if they're behind, where the rest of the organizations are, where they are in the maturity cycle. So you guys have picked out 5 dimensions to talk about with this. Can you explain a little bit more about those dimensions and why you picked them and what they are?
Absolutely. So as Fern outlined, it was organization, data, infrastructure, governance, and analytics. And the reasons we chose these 5 as the critical dimensions are from the fact that organizational maturity is very essential for success of any program related to data. Right? I mean, whether it's data warehousing or BI. And with big data, we feel that the confusion is so pervasive, whether it's an executive or it's a marketing, analytics person who's doing the job. The confusion is so pervasive in their minds, and it is so different that our goal is to bring alignment through this maturity of categorizing organization as one of the dimensions. So once the organizational maturity is evaluated, then we understand what is the data they're using. So it's the data maturity, whether you want social media data, whether you're talking contracts, whether it is unstructured, are you talking about semi-structured data, and it depends on the business you are and the data you want to bring in. So once we know that the organization is having an alignment and there is maturity in the data that we've assessed, then we blended it into analytics, because the outcomes of BI is basically analytics, the measurement of success, right? So analytics maturity, who is defining the analytics, what is the analytics, what does it do to the organization, what decisions need to be made, all these pieces and parts. That blended into governance in the end of the day. Because without proper governance, anything in the data space would be a failure. So we said, we need governance, we need metadata, we need master data management techniques. So all those pieces and parts get blended in. Once all these come to play, then comes infrastructure, right? I mean, everybody starts with the one word Hadoop, but we believe in our research that Fern and I have done exhaustively, we believe that executives are not swayed by that hype of just saying Hadoop is big data, and even the vendors don't agree to it. The vendors themselves said Hadoop is not equal to big data, it's much more than that. So in infrastructure, we have a broad categorization of new technologies, existing technologies, how do you marry them up, what are some of the best of breed options available. So it gives you a comprehensive outlay, if you will. So that is why these are the 5 dimensions.
Terrific. Well, that's very good. The biggest thing that I think from what customers are looking at today, and from what accounts are looking at, is how far along are people generally in the maturity? Am I behind? Am I about right? Am I ahead? So do we have a feeling of where organizations generally are along this maturity path?
It's still pretty early, in the big data landscape. Obviously, a lot of the internet giants who started this are pretty far along, and you can hold them up. There are some enterprises that are pretty far along, but most companies aren't necessarily that far along. Interestingly, there's probably a number of companies, especially in some of the early adopter, sort of areas that have, financial services and telco and those sorts of verticals that, have been doing big data for a while when they're predicting churn or looking at fraud, those sorts of things. But maybe it wasn't characterized, that way until the term came on last year. But I would definitely say that most companies are pretty early on, and it's going to be an evolving sort of landscape, and maturity itself is going to, continue to evolve.
Are you seeing the same things in your consulting practice as well?
Yes, absolutely, Paul. If I do a bell curve, right, like Fern said, the big companies are outliers because they've built their business model on this, right? Then you have some very niche, like businesses that run on Amazon who are very, succinct in exploiting, one aspect, which is social media. But 90% of the overall population of businesses and organizations are scratching the surface. I mean, there is a one-off project. There is a little bit of, we tried this and we failed. So I think if you do the bell curve and you do the measurement on that, companies are still in a very nascent state of mind, if you will. If you take our dimensions and apply it, they will all fall into that nascent category in one way, shape, or form. Because when somebody says they have a success and they do a presentation and they have all these case studies, it's about one business problem that somebody within a small unit solved probably, and it is not a game changer for the organization as a whole. And that is where our belief is that if you want big data to be the game changer, you need to understand how to develop this into a very mature process that actually can give you a guided, roadmap that helps you get your goal. So that is the end result that we're hoping based on what we've seen in the market.
Terrific. Well, that's all very good information. I think it'd be very interesting to see as the companies start taking the survey. And I understand we're just about ready to release the survey. We're getting close with that, and they're going to be able to find that through the TDWI website and sign on and take the survey there. So if you're interested in the big data analytics maturity model, please check us out soon on the TDWI website, and feel free to take the survey and see where you guys fall in the maturity cycle. So with that, thank you very much. This is Paul Kautza with the Data Warehousing Institute, and we'll see you at hopefully the upcoming conference.